just a little TNA.
I was straight trip.
And I was like, am I retarded?
Welcome back to the Counter Complex with Tyler and Ashley. We have a couple of guests with us, a regular guest, Daniel here, and our dear friend Richard, is it Burrell? Burrell, sorry. Yeah. Burrell from Again Fresno. That is a youth center here in Fresno, California. It's dedicated to providing a safe space for children growing up in a really rough neighborhood and to facilitate healing in that area. And so we're really excited to have you on here, Richard. Thank you for coming. I appreciate it. No problem, man. So we'd love to dive in and kind of get to know you a little bit, just to kind of kick things off. Can you tell us a little bit about Live Again?
Yeah, I could tell you a lot about Live Again. So Live Again Fresno exists, and the most simplest explanation is to create a safe place for children when they get home from school. Our target area is Parkway Drive in the Parkside, Jane Addams neighborhood. That's between McKinley and Belmont, from Golden State back to Marks. We operate Monday through Friday. There are 320 children now who are enrolled in an after-school program there. It is beautiful, just like the healing that goes on, the medicine that it's offered through tutoring and mentoring and like actual like partnerships and friendships with these kids. That area of our city has historically been known for just like the heavy gang influence that's there, and then the sex work and drugs and whatnot. What folks typically don't talk about when they speak about that neighborhood is just the incredibly high population of children who are extremely intelligent, who are beautiful children. They just don't have a whole lot of safe places to go to there. You know, they have this amazing park in Roding Park and this beautiful zoo, but oftentimes because of just circumstances, things that are going on in the environment, like that park and that zoo may as well be 100 miles away from them. You know.
Mm-hmm. You work a lot with children. What was your childhood like?
It literally mirrored a lot of the early work that we did in the motels. Like how the organization got started literally was me being very ill, having these tumors in my small intestine and large intestine. I went from being this like really large man, total ego, just work out all the time, to being like very sick and very like fragile, very frail, like had no energy, was just skin and bones. Went from like 250 to like 170 something pounds, and went through this beautiful process of like recognizing that at one point I lived in these motels. My actual introduction to Fresno was my mom moving into these motels from the Bay Area to try to escape things that she was involved in up there, just to fall back right into the same things. But I had forgotten about a lot of that. You know, I remembered like a lot of abuse from my childhood, a lot of neglect and abandonment. But early on, like I felt, this is one of the beautiful things to me is I felt like I was going to like serve this community, and I was here for these kids, and I was going to provide whatever it was, whether it was like guitar lessons or food or help with homework, right? I thought that I was providing this resource. The beautiful thing to me is that like these kids provided this sense of healing for myself. I had forgotten so many of like the hardships, so many of like the memories that were just repressed and pushed down were like brought to the surface. I was able to see them, recognize them, and work through a lot of them, and spending times with these children where they lived at. And it wasn't like I went there with this focus on healing. I went there like literally just to help these kids because I knew what they were there, and I had some idea of what their life was like. Right, mine was very similar, in like coming home from school and not seeing my mother for 2-3 days at a time, coming home from school and there not being any food or anyone to talk to for that matter, let alone to help me with my homework. Like I understood firsthand what that was like. And I saw that in the lives of these children. I showed up, honestly, not knowing like what I was supposed to be doing or any of that. Like I was not a preacher or a teacher, or like I really held on to that. Like, what am I supposed to be doing here? I am none of these things, preacher, teacher, none of that. But what I learned in that is that I'm a father, and that I'm an understanding man, and that there is medicine in that. And so I just kept showing up. 3 days out of the week, I would show up and help these kids with their homework.
Now help me out. So when you'd show up, where would you show up to early on? Where was this?
Oh my goodness, in the middle of a motel parking lot on Parkway Drive.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's interesting now, like to drive through the area. If you're on where the Vallarta's at Clinton and 99, if you ever like take the on ramp to get on southbound 99, like that was the first motel that we were in. It was called the Fresno Inn, and in like the on ramp now is where that motel was. And so I would pull up into the motel parking lot and like see the kids playing soccer. They kicked the ball, I kicked it back. Then I came back with like bottles. It was hot, right? And so like I brought some bottles of water and just got to know these kids' name. I am the worst with names, absolute worst. Like I'll challenge anybody to that. And
and then we might have to challenge. I'm
yeah.
pretty bad too.
So initially it was just like I want to learn these kids' names. Like, yeah, that's super important, right? Like what we call things and who we're called those things by is super important, like family names and things like that, you know? And so it was very important to me to like learn these kids' names. And so I just showed up and would play soccer with them. We'd drink some water and laugh. And after, I don't know, it only took a few weeks for me to understand that like, oh, these kids don't even have food. Like they don't have anything to eat. And so I worked at PPG at Pittsburgh Plate Glass at this huge glass factory. And I didn't know, like, how do I feed these kids, right? Like today we're a 501c3, and I think I shared that story with you guys of like, this was a totally foreign language to me. I didn't know 501c3, CBO, like any of that stuff. What I did know is like, I'm a father who loves my children, and there was these children here who didn't have very many people who loved them. And so community is huge to me. And at the time there was a store that had the word community in its title. And so I took my paycheck, my work check, and I walked in there, asked for the owner. He came out, and I said, hey, this is who I am. I'm going to come and buy these items at your store to create a healthy lunch for these kids, all right? Some type of healthy food option for them when they get home from school. And the very first thing out of his mouth was, where's this money coming from, right? Like, I'm this man covered in gang tattoos from a very specific neighborhood in Fresno. And he was just concerned with where the money was coming from. So I pulled my work check out and was like, look, like I will cash this check here if you can just give me these items at cost. I'm not asking for anything for free. I just need some help. You have the word community in your title, right, of your store. This is the challenges that kids are facing in this specific community. Mm-hmm. And so we were able to work out, like he understood what I was talking about. And so we were able to work out a deal where like the lunch meats and fruits and vegetables and things like that to make up a healthy meal. And so we created this after school lunch program with that partnership, just making sure that like on the days that myself and my children were there playing soccer and helping with homework, that these kids actually had something to eat.
So when you first started this, like you really had no intention on turning it to what it is now.
No, none at all.
You were just doing it just to help.
Yeah, I remembered what it was like living in those motels as a child. Like that was my introduction to Fresno. And then later on as an adult, like I was incarcerated for a period of time. And when I came home, like that was the first place that I went to, was right back to this motel. That was my introduction to Fresno. Like didn't even put it together initially. It was later in the first evening that I was there. I was like, oh my gosh, like I was here as a kid. Like I know like all of these, I know these places. And it felt terrible. It felt absolutely terrible. That was the first time in my life that, like I knew the word depression. I could probably use it in a sentence at that time, but I didn't know like physically what it felt like. Mm-hmm. And that like, at that point in my life, I tried to run from it, like really, really tried to run from it. I started drinking, which just led to even more problems where I got like that was the deepest dive into depression I've ever felt in my life. And so to be able to go back there later on in life and understanding as a child what it felt like, understanding as an adult what it felt like to be on this healing journey and then go back, right? Totally unaware of like the resource that I actually carried in terms of being a father and being an understanding man, and like how that can help lead conversations, but also like walk with folks on their own healing journey. I had no idea. None.
Wow.
Yeah. Many of these children, not all of them, but many of them, like their life experience mirrors mine as a child, and like that was the draw for me, right? That was the draw of like, nope, I know that smell that's on their clothes, even after their clothes are laundered and washed, like the smell from the room, like I know that smell. The challenge of like, can I find something even remotely clean? Can I make it to the bus stop today? Like those are huge barriers to a child just getting to school, right? The safest place for them. For sure, they're going to eat there. For sure, they're going to have like relative safety there. Will they have the things that they need just to make it to the bus stop?
So, Richard, this is profound. I mean, this is amazing. How did you go from being you're affiliated with gangs and you were having a rough time? What you said you got really sick. What was the transition as far as physically, emotionally, spiritually into, deciding to live for others in that way?
Yeah. I feel like this story is for very specific people. I've sat in some circles where people are like, what are you talking about? And what it was like that depression. I drank and drank and drank until like I didn't want to be awake. And so I would just drink till I passed out and then wake up and do it again. And one day I had just had enough, like literally just had enough. I had this experience where I left a firearm out in my house, and it scared me, knowing that I had children, and that I had drank so much that I was just that careless. Like it rocked me. It literally rocked me. And in the culture that I came up in, like if you needed something, there was always somebody that you could call. Whatever the thing was, you call somebody and they would get you connected to it somehow, some way. And so I knew, like sitting on my couch waiting for my kids to come back home, I knew that something needed to change. I knew that like I needed to do something different. I just knew that I was in a really bad place, and if I didn't address it, it wasn't going to get any better. And so I called up this guy who was a bank robber, like had been a bank robber. FBI chased him. They wrote books about this guy, but he was running this men's home up in the top of the Angeles forest, and that was the best experience for me ever. I remember calling him and saying, like, I don't want to hear about God. I don't want to hear about any of these things. Like, I know that if I stay here, I'm not going to live very long. I can't connect thoughts right now. I'm having a really hard time just connecting thoughts and making things work out in my brain. I just can't. Can I come down there? And he laughed at me and said, get yourself here. And the next morning, like I was on the Amtrak, got myself to Palmdale. They came and picked me up from there, and I sat on the top of this forest for 8 months. I sat in the cabin in the top of this forest. 6 months into it, I started I was healthy. I was back working out and eating and running through the hills and all this stuff. And one day I found on one of my little hikes up the hills, like I found this bear den. And it was such an interesting experience in that, like, it's just a black bear. Like, they live up there. It's not a big deal. And it made me cry. It actually made me really angry. And I started just walking and feeling just, like, really messed up. Started feeling all this hurt. And I don't know how to describe this part, but this, like, switch just flipped to where I was like, I'm going to find this bear. I knew right then, like, I wanted to just die. Like, literally wanted this bear to, like, attack me. I needed this, like, I felt, my thoughts were this, like, I'm going to find this bear, and I want it, like, I will charge at it. I want it to kill me. I want to. I jogged and walked and ran and walked until I was exhausted up this hill. And probably a little over 2 hours of just going straight up this mountain, I get to this wash where it's like 15 feet. It's this little gully, right? And I'm sitting there, and there's these beautiful trees, and they're like leaves all over the ground, and it's just this really beautiful spot. So I sat down, I'm like, dang, dude, I'm tired. And I got like 4 hour walk back, you know? And I remember sitting there and feeling just like really peaceful and kind of foolish. Like, why would you be looking for a bear in the forest? And why would you want to die? And whatever, you know, just kind of like laughing at myself and thinking it was silly. And there's these saplings that are growing up out of this little washout, this gully, and they start moving. They're maybe like 3 inch in diameter, right? There's probably 4 or 5 of them like directly beneath me, and they're just moving. And, damn, my body's reacting right now, and I got chills, and I was like, as slow as possible, pressed myself down into the leaves and sat there. And I tried to breathe as slow as possible. I was scared. It was probably one of the first times as an adult that I was like, oh man, like I'm afraid right now. Like I'm scared. And the second thought that I had was, God, this is what you've always done to me. I'm tired. I'm vulnerable. I can't defend myself. As a child, I was tired. I was vulnerable. I could not defend myself. And you allowed these atrocities, these terrible, terrible things to happen to me. And I had this sense of like, I don't care. I just surrender, total surrender, right? God, you've never protected me. You've never been there for me. At my absolute weakest moments as a little child, like you let adults just brutalize me. And I sat up ready to face like this bear, and it turned out it was a deer. And it was just this big old eyeball just looking at it. It was rubbing its head against the trees. This is what was making the little saplings move, right? It's playing. It's playing. I don't know if you guys have ever seen deers run. They don't really run. They kind of just bounce. And so it was like 2 big bounds, and it was gone into the trees. And I cried. I mean, like hysterically, just sobbing, crying. And I had this, it wasn't like God from the clouds speaking down. It was this very loud thought inside of me that said, your entire life, you've chased this, like this wounded feeling. You've chased hurt. You've chased shame. You've chased anger. This is what I have for you. I recognized that the deer was playing. It was joy. It was peaceful and peace-filled. It was loving, right? It wasn't like a conscious thought. Like this confession just started coming out. These things that I had been involved in or done or heard about, whatever. Like I just started confessing all these things sitting there. Please forgive me for this thing. I'm sorry for that thing, whatever it was. And just sat there until I was absolutely just spent. I don't remember walking back to my cabin. I know that I did. I don't actually remember walking there. I remember being on the trail. I remember like walking up to the door of my cabin, and I laid there and just cried and cried and cried. One of the, like that was all profound to me. The next part of this story really just took me to a whole different place. So for the first 6 months that I was at this camp, you either go cut fireline, which consists of like being on the side of a hill with this tool, like cutting weeds or chopping down oak trees and splitting wood. You either did that for 2 hours or you went to a half-hour devotion. Like they had a church, like a chapel up in the top of this place. And I was like, I'm not going to church, man. Like I got no use for that stuff. Like I'm just going to work. Right? It was like, I'll do the manly thing. Like I'll just chop wood for 2 hours. I don't care. And it was funny to me that next morning, the morning after that encounter with the deer, was the first time I really felt compelled to go into this chapel. So I opened the door to my cabin and I see the chapel, and this was the first time I actually considered going in there. Right, in 6 months I do this every day. I was like, man, I need to go in there. And so I walk into there, and I'm like nervous and feeling uncomfortable and all these things, and I felt like I was gonna have this spotlight on me, and I didn't necessarily care for the spotlight. But no one turned around to look at me. Nothing. I sat down, and this brother, his name is Ted, said, "Let's open our Bibles to the book of Micah." That was the key for me, right? 2 things happened. One, Micah was my first best friend. Didn't really have best friends, or weren't supposed to like get close to people growing up. But Micah was a really good friend to me. he was a man that I recognized as kids, right? Like, that like I loved and I cared for him. So that this feeling of like we are men and we're supposed to be manly men, but like, dang man, like I love you, and like I want to spend time with you, and I want to like this was the first experience like that as a kid, and so Micah had come to me, as very early adults, right, late teens, and said something to the effect of, "I'm gonna have a baby, and like I can't run around and do any of these things anymore." And it's a long story, but shortly after that conversation, like Micah was killed.
Oh, man.
And so I had made this decision of like, well, this is what happens when you turn your life around, right? Like, this is what happens. So I was like, no, I'm not going to church, and I'm not going to go on this. Like, that's what happens, because I had seen it happen a bunch of times. Like, I just held on to this belief. So one very profound thing was like I walk into this place that's totally foreign to me, and they say this name that I haven't heard in years, right? And I was like, okay, now you got my attention. And then they bring up this verse about like, it's so funny. I remember it right now. He said it's like Micah 6:6 or something, and Ted said, "There's these three things that God wants from you, right? It's like to walk justly. There's something else about humbly and to love the Lord your God." And I remember saying out loud, like, "That's it." Like that's it. And now people turn around and look at me, and I'm feeling foolish, but because I thought it was like this whole long list of things, right? Like way more than 10. I thought it was like this long list of things that like you had to do to be like righteous and whatever. And I remember saying that, and I just started laughing. Like, I can do those things. Like, that's easy, man. I got that. And then, like, shortly after that, I started like having really bad stomach aches all the time. Turned out I had these tumors, and so I came back home. Still with that same belief to like, oh yeah, when you turn your life around, like you die, like this is what happens. And so I remember telling everybody at the camp, like hugging them, and they're like, "You're gonna be back." No, I'm not. Like, I'm gonna go home, and in my head, I was like, I'm going home to die. Like, I want to spend time with my kids. I want to do this stuff. And it was like a rough 2 years of just like being sick and treatments and whatever. But through all of it, like there was never this like sadness. It was like, yeah, this is what's supposed to happen. Like, it's not really that big of a deal. And this total acceptance of like, this is beautiful. This is a good thing. I'm gonna walk in this thing. No matter how sick I feel, no matter what's going on, this is just beautiful. And was able to recognize, like, at that point, like, see God and recognize the divine in everything, like everywhere that I went. Didn't matter if it was a lake, a tree, a bird, people that other people had like cast aside. Like, to be able to see God in all of them and just see beauty in all of them. Yeah, that was like one of the best experiences. Yeah.
Wow. That's beautiful.
It's so incredible.
Deeply moved.
I can relate in a lot of ways. I'm going through my own health crisis.
Yeah.
Yeah, but and there's days where it's difficult, but then there's days where I'm like, wow, like what a magical life we live in. What a magical opportunity I'm given to, like, you're given new eyes to see things.
For sure. For sure. And then to be able to witness, for me in my journey, to be able to witness the fact that like, to wake up to the fact that like God, creator, grandfather, whatever we choose to call it, like resides within us, the divine that resides within us, that created this body, also created the ability for this body to heal itself, right? And we have to do our parts, like we have to eat the right things and sleep and whatever else, to wake up to that as well, like, oh yeah, like my body can heal itself. What are the things that I need to be doing to help facilitate that healing, right?
So you moved. So you had tumors and you healed.
Well, I mean, there was some surgeries and some treatments and some other stuff, but I remember going in for like the last surgery. Like, they go in and they do these camera scans and all this stuff, and like the last one to be taken out was just like this red spot. Like, there was nothing left there, and it was like it's just my body healing itself. That's it, and that's all it was. Yeah. Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about your heritage?
Yeah. Absolutely. So I actually got separated from my family. You know, you don't know, but there was lots of just dysfunction and turbulence, right? Not lots of
I
consistency.
do know. What
Growing
that's
up,
like.
growing up as a kid,
Same.
and so like when my father died, I was given an opportunity by my grandmother, right, to like either go back to Las Cruces with all the family there, or stay in California with my mom. And at 11 years old, I was just like, well, I need to stay here with my little brother. Like I can't just leave him. And so like the decision was, okay, you made your choice, and everyone left. And so to be separated from that part of my family for a long time just left this like void. I had no idea about like the culture or the heritage or any of those things, but really pushing into the experience of following a bear, tracking a bear through the forest, and then coming to learn it was a deer, also played out in real life. And so I got connected to folks here who are part of ceremony, Native American, indigenous people from here who are part of ceremony, and my brother Leonard, who's actually like a bear dancer. I followed this dude for years, still continue to follow him today, right? Through teachings with like the drum and different songs and things like that, which led me on this journey back to my family in Las Cruces, learning about how like they migrated from Zacatecas, Mexico, to Las Cruces. Some of our family like had children with Tewa and Navajo, Dene people, and so part of the ceremonies down there belong to deer dances and just recognizes that there's stories, right, that take a long time to explain. But that journey, that experience that I had on that mountaintop was actually like opening up part of me to like, no, there's this thing, Richard, and it's your culture and it's your family's history. And we're going to reconnect you to your grandmother and your great-grandmother and your great-great-grandmother through this drum and through these songs and through these dances, right? Even you're not even physically with them. We're going to connect you spiritually.
Yeah, it's in your DNA.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Richard,
That's
your
so
words are
awesome.
potent, man. I just want you to know that they're powerful, and it's a great reminder that for something that I've realized, but along the way, sometimes you may forget that things aren't happening to you, but they are happening for you, and the universe is conspiring for your greatest good.
Yes.
You
Thank you for that.
You chasing that bear and wanting to die, like even that was meant to happen. You know?
Yeah. Well, so that experience, like I had to have that experience to show me how many times I had put myself in harm's way, how many times like I had been willing, like I just wanted to die. Whether it was in a prison riot or in different things in the street, like I had lost this desire. I had felt so much shame and carried so much guilt, and the hurt felt so big that I didn't see a way through it. And so I'd put myself, whether consciously or subconsciously, putting myself in situations where I saw no way out, right? And getting these big holes in my body and then living through it and going like, well, dang, what do I got to do now? And in between those circumstances, like not knowing what to do and just resorting to just drinking until the next thing came, you know? Yeah. But that experience of following that bear, tracking that bear, turned out to be a deer, recognizing the divine within myself and saying like, oh, shoot, like there's a wound there and I don't know what it is. To being able to come back to Fresno and my own body saying it's time to pause. It's like, you won't let yourself sit down, so I'm going to help you. Right? Sit down, readjust your diet. While that's going on, you're literally doing this inner work spiritually. This inner work is going on physically, this healing inside. And then to be able to recognize this, for me, it went back to my father, this father wound, right? Of like him just not being present. I didn't understand. He loved me. I just didn't understand the way he loved me. Which turned into this father hunger.
I relate.
Yeah, like I chased this thing. And the men who chose to stick him around in my life and like mentor me and teach me. I could never speak bad on them, right? They were all wrapped up in gang stuff and whatnot. And I believe that like they were using like the best tools they had available to say like, no man, like I care about your well-being and this is why we move in this way. This is why we do these things. I honestly believe like if they knew better, they would do better. Like they would have told me like, nah, stay in school, man. Like, or whatever the thing is, you know. They taught me some different lessons, which kept me alive. And I feel very fortunate to have had those men in my life. However, they weren't my father, you know? And not that I could ever take any one of these kids' places or their kids, these children's fathers' places. Like, that's not like a goal or a thing that I want to do. I understand that, like, I am an uncle, a brother, a dad, a cousin, you know, like I am that for so many of these kids. I do my absolute best to be like that man that, like, I needed at 5, 8, 11. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's the most healing part of this work for me. I came to this understanding of when we do outreach or mission work or ministry or whatever we're calling it, right? If for me anyway, this is my opinion, that if we're doing it right, then like both sides of the table are receiving a resource, right?
Always.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Always.
We get like kind words said to us often about creating a safe place for the kids, or about the food that's being made for them by folks that are from their neighborhood or whatever. I'm like you guys don't even understand. Like, I don't even think it's a fair exchange. Like, we give these kids a safe place, and they remind me of like to be imaginative and to be creative, not just resilient. Like, we use that word towards kids often, but like to actually be like imaginative and be creative. And I don't think it's a fair exchange. Like, we give them these very basic things, and they give back to us freely, like this huge, colorful palette of never-ending just goodness to like choose from. You know? Yeah.
Play.
That's a really beautiful.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really beautiful because we've kind of noticed in one of our kind of critiques of the models that we've designed as a culture around healing is one of them. We go to like therapists where supposedly they're supposed to only give us something, and it really doesn't. It's not working very well. It doesn't seem like it because there's not this mutual exchange, which is why we've started this men's group and why we were so drawn to groups like yours, is because there's this. It's always mutual.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
you know,
more
you grow
about
together.
community.
Yeah.
You grow and heal together. So
Yeah.
I love that.
The healing for me comes through the relationships. The
Yeah,
healing
that's
for
been
me
like-
has come through the relationships.
That's been the message ever since we've started. Like, the more we continue to do, it's like the more we see that you heal through relating, through communion with each other. You know, like everything you've been speaking today at some level has been touching me, and it's like, you know, and there's some healing going on with me that I can just feel, you know, and it's like words that I've needed to hear as well, you know, and you know, I know that there's been a lot of talk between Tyler and I, and even Ashley and I, that we've all, the whole community that we've created, we've all come up together, you know, and
That's
it's
awesome.
it's really
That's
quite
important.
cool. Yeah, and so I'm super happy that we met you, and
Thank you.
now I don't know if you're accepting of it or not, but whether you like it or not, you're part of our community.
Thank you. No, I, honestly, like, I feel honored. I do. Even the invitation to come and to like sit with you guys and to share a little bit, like, deeply honored and greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you for being here, man.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, we appreciate it. So, Richard, are there any ways, like, what's the best way to get hold of you, to support you?
Yeah.
Yeah, what
Yeah.
are your current projects that you need support and help?
Yeah. Thank you for that. So there's 2 huge projects that are coming up, honestly. Gosh, I'm so bad. So not just being bad with names, also being like challenged with numbers. The last Thursday in October, whatever that is. So there's this documentary. It's called Motel Drive. It's not on a streaming platform yet. It's on this film festival tour, and it's doing extremely well. Brandon Daughtry is this producer, very young producer from LA. And he came up here and gave like 6.5, almost 7 years of his life filming one family who lived in the motels along Parkway Drive. And he did an incredible job documenting like just the challenges of one child who has a mom and dad living out on Parkway Drive. And so, I mean, he's winning a bunch of awards across the United States right now. And so he's agreed to like do a showing here in Fresno. So the last Thursday, forgive me, whatever the date is.
Last Thursday of October.
Last
Okay,
Thursday.
We'll post it up. We'll
Thank
figure
you.
it out. No
The
problem.
last Thursday of
Yeah.
October at Tower Theater, we're gonna have a showing, and it's gonna be amazing, right? It'll be a lot of folks from town here.
Our whole bold group.
We're gonna
Yeah.
all, we're
Yeah,
gonna
I
show
would
up.
love that. Thank you. We'll have
Yeah.
it up on our website and social media stuff soon, just as a save the date, and then again as a reminder. But it's very beautiful the way that Brendan put this together and creating the historical content, right? Or context, excuse me, of what Motel Drive and Parkway Drive was back in the 50s when it was built. I mean, he did a great job. He has the Hacienda Hotel, which is Clinton in 99, like full on video with like the mermaids that were back behind the bar and like the Rolling Stones and the Beatles and all these other folks who came there. And then ultimately just like the decline of this place. The Shaw family who graciously like allowed themselves to be filmed over that period of time. It's amazing. It speaks to like challenges that a family, just about any family in that neighborhood takes on. But also I feel he did a great job of talking about like the importance of having place-based resources in terms of us, like a community-based organization that's like there, cut teeth in the motel parking lots, recognize the need for a safe place for these children, and then created jobs for folks from this community. So it's the moms and the grandmothers who are facilitating like small groups and conversations, who are cooking food, so that these young people who maybe they're cut off from their family for whatever reason have the experience of like going to their nana's house after school. There's hot food being cooked. There's playtime. And then there's these smaller groups that are focused on whether it's academic support or social emotional healing. All of it is like medicine. All of it. All of it. Yeah, so that's one. Then two is kind of a big deal. So we're opening a new community space. We're in escrow now. New community space. It's like centrally located right in the middle of the neighborhood, 1915 West Olive. So we were given a good chunk of the money, like $1 million was allocated in the state of California budget to help us facilitate this, just the purchase of the land. And so we're still in the process of like remodeling this building and developing the land that's on it. It's 4 acres. It's smack in the middle of the neighborhood. It's 2 blocks down from the school, from the elementary school where a lot of these kids go to. Yeah, it's beautiful. It's a huge project. Yeah.
So in what ways could we help you with that project?
Man. Well, we definitely have like a need. I hate saying this part. Definitely have a need for like financial resources because so the store has been there. I think since the late 60s. It was a family from Brazil who originally opened it. It was called Mendez General Store. But like folks from all over Fresno County came and bought like all their work gear there, their Wranglers, their Levi's, their work boots, their cowboy hats and whatnot. And so like for decades, like folks have known about this store. I want to keep this store because it's that neighborhood, right? And remodel the inside. That takes a lot of money to do that. And then like we're thinking like mixed use sports complex in the middle, and then the back 1.5 acres will be housing because that's such a huge need here in Fresno. Yeah. So financial resources for one, for sure.
Liveagainfresno.com.
Liveagainfresno.org.
.org.
Yeah.
Sorry, liveagainfresno.org, and then we can donate directly on the website.
You can donate directly to that website. I'm always open to come and talk to folks. I give out my cell phone number all the time. It's 559-519-3183. Like always down to come and sit and talk with folks about like who we are, what we do, different ways they can get involved. But like that's definitely, the financial help towards the remodel, but also like people who could swing a hammer or like, move a shovel. Like that's going to be helpful as well. This is a large chunk of it's almost 4 acres of just primarily undeveloped land.
And where is this all? Are you You guys are working on it now?
Yeah, so we're in escrow now. We hope to close that within the next couple of weeks.
Okay.
I'll definitely get you guys, as soon as that's done, I'll get you guys information for like a groundbreaking ceremony because we want to have our community come out, right? And since you said I'm part of the community, you guys are there to come out and just like let you guys see the vision, walk through the place, let you see like the trail that the moms and grandmothers, aunties from this neighborhood have created by themselves through this property. There are no sidewalks there, and so like if you can pick, it gets really foggy because it's right next to the 99. It gets really foggy there. So if you can picture a really foggy day walking on the side of a 2-lane road, trying to get your little one to school. It's just unsafe. And so there's brilliant mothers and grandmothers from this neighborhood created their own trail through the property that we're buying to be able to get the kids to school safely.
Wow.
And so like plants what we want to do is fortify that trail, like make it stronger so that they're not walking through mud, so that there are trees that create shade, and that there are edible plants and berries and things like that, you know.
That's incredible.
Yeah, we just want to make it better.
I like
That's
that you're
really
leaving
cool.
that.
For
That's
sure.
good. That's good.
For sure.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Richard. We appreciate you coming on.
Yeah.
Genuinely.
Thank you.
Yeah. And then for anybody out there, if you're interested in learning more about our men's and women's circles, Bold and Soul, you can find us on our websites at brotherhoodoflivingdivinity.com or sisterhoodofunitedlight.com. Feel free to email us at thecountercomplex@gmail.com. Our phone number is 559-492-8802. You can call us and one of us will answer, and we can talk to you about what we're trying to do. And we'd love any support you could send our way. And please support Richard here at Live Again Fresno. And we appreciate you tuning in to the Counter Complex, where we are focusing on heroes in our community. So thank you again, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.